Hey, welcome to the April ARCUS Community Call. I'm Audrey Taylor. I'm the Executive Director for ARCUS. And I want to just start by saying that we're really glad to see everyone here with us today. It's great to see so many familiar faces, so many new faces. We know that everyone is balancing a lot in the research community today. So it's really great to see everyone taking the time to connect and just kind of participate in this event. I know everything feels uncertain and pretty tough for people out there. We know it's been really chaotic, a lot of whiplash. People are facing funding pressures, institutional changes, geopolitical tensions, just tons of uncertainty. So we're hoping to continue this monthly trend of community calls because we feel it's really important to carve out that space for community and connection right now and hopefully find some mutual support in coming together around both a chance to talk about what's going on and about ways we can keep this collaboration and community going on a positive note, even though things are uncertain. So that's the balance that ARCUS is trying to split right now, trying to come up with positive ways to keep some community going while at the same time recognizing that everybody is going through a lot. So hoping to hold space for that community, bringing people together, learning from one another, and forging those stronger ties. So if everybody wants to take a sec to introduce yourself in the chat, just let us know your name, where you're joining from, anything else you'd like to share. That would be great. That chat will be a record of who's here and something we can share out if people want. And then we'll just move forward while folks are doing that and say that these community calls are designed to be really informal, accessible spaces. We really strive to bring our institutional and individual members together with the rest of the community, our board, our staff, and anyone else who happens to stumble in along the way. We welcome newcomers as much as our tried and true members. But I think we see these calls as a way to keep the lines of communication open between our membership and the greater research community and support each other. So whether you're starting out in Arctic research or you have decades of experience, we welcome you to these calls and to be a part of our community. And we're hoping that these monthly get-togethers are useful regardless of what your role is or your area of focus. We're not trying to target a particular part of the community, a particular topic or role. It's really broadly open to anyone engaged in Arctic research support, funding, or interested in seeing that this type of work continues on in the future. We really want to encourage anyone who finds this valuable and is interested in hearing more to consider joining as an individual member or encouraging your institution to become a member. The logos on the slide here are all of our institutional members. And so we would love to hear from anybody who's interested in becoming a part of that institutional member community, or you can join as an individual at the individual membership level. So feel free to reach out to any of us staff or through the website to investigate that membership option. We're really trying to sustain this network and amplify this collective voice and show support for this network. So that said, I will turn it over to Britt Myers, who's our Director for Strategic Engagement, and she's going to talk us through a little bit about specifically what we'll be talking about at this call today.
Thanks, Audrey. And today we actually have 3 programs that we're going to be spotlighting that are illustrating the power and potential of collaborative exchange. And we're going to be hearing from Helena Buurman from the University of Alaska Fairbanks about the Bridging Arctic Gateways project, Ruth Varner from the University of New Hampshire on the CARPE Research Traineeship Program's Arctic Climate Change and Community Collaboration Workshops, And then finally, last but very much not least, Janet Clarke from the Sitka Sound Science Center about the Scientist-in-Residency Fellowship Program. And then afterward, we'll be opening it up for some discussion so we can hear from the community about what everyone thinks makes these kinds of exchanges valuable, what we can do to help sustain collaborative exchange, particularly right now, and what the community might be able to do together to develop new or expand on existing exchange opportunities. And so with that, I'm going to actually welcome Helena to the floor to get us started with these highlight presentations.
Thanks, Britt. Hi, everyone. I hope it's not snowing where you all are, because it's snowing in Fairbanks today. So taking one for the team here. Okay, I'm going to launch into describing the story of the Bridging Arctic Gateways Initiative. I think everyone here agrees that collaborations produce stronger science. So that's kind of where our starting point is. And this sounds really easy to do, especially with like-minded groups. But the reality is that creating collaborations that are successful, that feel organic, that are going to last for a long time is not easy to do, right? So this is a story about how Alaska and Maine, so AK and ME, so ACME, came together to grow this type of partnership. So the starting point for this is that Alaska and Maine are both considered Arctic gateways for the United States in the east and in the west. They're both northerly states that face similar geographic and logistical challenges. They have similar industries. They have similar economies, if you think about fishing, energy, and at UAF, University of Alaska Fairbanks, and at the University of Maine, there's a lot of studying of similar fields in Arctic issues. So the leadership of both institutions saw enough common ground to go after an Arctic Gateways Consortium. And they came to ARCUS and brought ARCUS in to act as the connective tissue for this, this initiative. And so that came together to become the Bridging Arctic Gateways collaboration, with the aim of growing lasting collaboration between UAF and UMaine around Arctic research. So how to do this in a way that it sticks. So this relies on relationships at both institutions, and it also relies on a lot of herding of researchers, which is also a lot like herding cats. So this, let's talk about how to herd cats for a few minutes here. Let me advance here locally. So a few words about cat herding. We had, for our initiative, we had a secret weapon, and that secret weapon was Pips Veazey, who some of you here will know. Pips has a strong background in systems convening and team science, and leads initiatives at UMaine already in that realm. Also, Pips had spent the first, I might get this wrong, 20 years of her career at UAF and had recently moved to UMaine. So she had a strong familiarity with both institutions, and that was really helpful in getting this off the ground. So we had a small group came together, ARCUS, UAF, and UMaine came together and had a few key strategies that we followed. The first one was to choose your cats carefully. Cats who have similar interests and will play well together. This is also harder than it sounds. You need to figure out availability, you need to coordinate. So there was a lot, this was an iterative process that took several months. Okay, so once you've chosen your cats, we also chose to follow the principles of a minimum viable consortium, which is where you choose fewer cats rather than more cats, because it is easier logistically to manage a smaller group and create a close-knit environment. You can make decisions faster. Yeah, logistics go faster. And so we using, once picking the folks that we thought would play well together, we designed very specific, deliberate activities that would draw out the common threads between the researchers at both institutions. And we built an agenda that was a mix of classroom activities and field trips, all focused on trying to bubble up ideas from this group. So the first of these workshops happened in 2023 at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. It was a 3-day event in November, and a group of, I'm going to get this wrong, but it was about 10 or 12 folks from outside came up to UAF and spent 3 days in and around campus, focused on exploring what similarities exist between UAF and UMaine, building connections, building that rapport between people, and ending with a list of short and medium and long-term goals to sustain this collaboration. I'm aware of some work that followed this workshop. I have in my notes, it wasn't a ton, but it was meaningful. But it had momentum. And so skip ahead a year, or actually it was only a few months, in spring of 2024, it was very easy to build on that momentum and do it all again, but in reverse, sending Alaskans to Maine to do a lot of the similar activities, but building on the outcomes of the year prior. So we had a return visit also in November, I think in the exact same week. We had 10 Alaskans travel for 3 days to Maine and explore similarities, look at the facilities in Maine, just get a feel for it. And again, this is relationship building. Out of the 2024 collaboration, I know that there's been one joint proposal submitted to NSF so far this year already, and I don't know where that lands now with everything that's happening, but this partnership is continuing along to grow. We have really fostered strong relationships between the two institutions, and we're excited to see where it goes from here. This effort was made possible by a small group of dedicated organizers, and I will give a shout out to Britt Myers on the call for ARCUS for making it all happen. Pip Speasy and Anne Heberger Marino at University of Maine, and myself at University of Alaska Fairbanks. It was a concerted effort that we are continuing with, but obviously what remains to be seen, what falls out of DC to make this possible for another year. So that is what I had to talk about. Britt, I can pass you the mic back.
Yeah, thank you very much, Helena. And there's a lot to talk about the Bridging Arctic Gateways workshop, but we're gonna actually hold on some question and discussion around that until we're done with all of our presentations. So thank you. And next up, we're going to hear from Ruth Varner. So, Ruth, do you have slides that you would like to share?
Yes, I have a few. Yep. Hopefully not too many.
There you go.
Sorry, I know, I should be ready. Okay.
Looks good.
All right. Thank you so much. I just wanted to, thank the organizers to give us a chance to talk a little bit about our project. I might go through this pretty quickly, but happy to share slides or talk with folks later if they have more questions. I noticed that you had put on as potential funding opportunities the NRT program, which is an NSF research traineeships. And so that's what I'll be talking about. And so this is the Convergent Arctic Research Perspectives in Education, or CARPE traineeship program. And this is housed at the University of New Hampshire, but we have multiple partners as part of the program. So I'll just kind of walk through a few slides to give you an idea of what this trainee program is, and then also our collaborations workshop. So the NRT you'll talk about maybe later, but it's really a program that funds graduate trainees, and they just came through with their 10th year of funding, and it's a great opportunity, I think, for faculty to come together. And the reason that we proposed this NRT that's focused on Arctic research is because the University of New Hampshire has a lot of Arctic scientists. And so folks who are interested in doing physical, natural science, and civil and environmental engineering, as well as social sciences. And so we came together and proposed to the NRT to really think about how we might come up with new graduate education models for training. And I just wanted to acknowledge that UNH is on the homelands of the Pennacook, Abenaki, and Wabanaki peoples, and they are also partners with us on this project. And so our first partners, just to introduce them, are Denise and Paul Pulio, who are the Sagamo and Sagama Squaw of the Cowasuck Band of the Pennacook Abenaki people, and they're our local Indigenous partners. Our second set of partners are Katie Spellman and Elena Sparrow, who are at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and who we collaborated directly with on the workshop that I'll talk with you a little bit more about. And then we also have Indigenous partners from Sweden, from the Sami Gayate organization, Yurkur, and also Tarina. And our partners are really critical for this program, as they've helped us develop our curriculum as well as our research projects that our students are doing in the NRT. The vision for CARPE is that we want to promote transformative graduate training, where we think about convergent scientific research and these mutually beneficial partnerships with Indigenous and local communities as really becoming the norm in graduate training rather than the exception. And you can probably imagine, as we just heard, that creating these partnerships, building them, and learning how to work together is a challenge. And so that's really what our program is focused on, is building that capacity to do this work. We also want to train not just graduate students, but also their advisors. And really that's in the design and the implementation of convergent research projects. So really thinking about how the Arctic is changing with warming, changing seasonality, and thinking about both the natural and human systems. And it really is about trying to build students and faculty's capacity to work with people who live and work in the Arctic. We also want to encourage our graduate students to pursue careers that seek to address these grand challenges posed by changing climate and then the impacts on society. And so our students are really focused on getting their graduate training and then moving into either academic or outside of academic careers, but really trying to give them that capacity to do that work with communities. And so when we talk about convergence for CARPE, we're really thinking about the integration across the disciplines of natural, physical, social sciences, and engineering. And that's really across the whole spectrum of our research, from the design, the implementation, and the communication of the impacts of changing Arctic seasonality. And these are just some images, and many of you are in the Arctic, so you probably don't need to see them, but just how changing Arctic is, the changing seasonality and also permafrost thaw and other cascading impacts are changing these ecosystems. CARPE program has 6 core competencies, and I'll just go over these really quickly, and then I'll talk more about the workshop that we have co-developed with our colleagues at University of Alaska Fairbanks. But we obviously teach our students about convergence. That's a really key competency, the background on Arctic system science. We also do a lot of training around communication, ethics, teamwork, and career readiness. And the ethics component really does involve a lot of how do we work with communities in a way that we could co-produce and co-develop projects. And so that is why we have partnered with the University of Alaska Fairbanks to really think about how do we train our students to really do that kind of work. And so we have 2 key courses that are more of our training courses. One of them is Arctic Research Methods 1, which is a semester-long course at the University of New Hampshire. And this image on the left is actually a trip where the students go up to the top of Mount Washington in the winter. And so they actually get to, even though we don't live in the Arctic, experience Arctic-like weather. And then our second research methods course is a 5-day workshop that's held in Fairbanks in January. And so then we do get to experience winter in the Arctic. And I think this is the same workshop room that we just saw in one of the other slides that you showed earlier. And so this course is really, like I said, developed with the Navigating the New Arctic Community Office folks in Fairbanks, and that's Elena Sparrow, Katie Spellman, Melinda Chase, and Christy Buffington. And when we proposed this project or proposed this program, we reached out to these folks because we had been working with them, or several folks from UNH had been working with Elena and Katie on GLOBE protocols and some other projects where we were working with training teachers on how to do measurements in the wintertime. And so we had developed a partnership with them already. And then this became the next iteration of our relationship building. And so this workshop is called Arctic Climate Change and Community Collaborations. And it's exciting to take our graduate students to Fairbanks in the wintertime because we get to do things like go out into the field and do this kind of work. But we also spend a great deal of our time working with local Indigenous elders who come and give of their time to teach us about their culture and to understand their perspectives on the changing climate and the impacts that they're seeing. We do some pre-workshop field safety training, which has been really critical here at the University of New Hampshire. So the students actually have a week-long pre-workshop workshop where we're doing a lot of reading and talking and planning, and we do this fieldwork safety planning. And the University of New Hampshire has actually developed a really good field safety plan, and there's a link here if you'd like to have it later. I can send it to you as a guideline for doing that field work. So we want to make sure when we travel with our students and we take them to places that we're thinking about all of the things that they might encounter and to prepare them. One of the collaborators that we have is Carly Tyance-Hassel, and she works with us on talking about two-eyed seeing. And one of the student feedback after working with Carly is everyone has a scope of influence, and what you learn here can be shared with peers, your lab institutes, or among generations. And this is how the narrative shifts. And so we really see some change in how our students are thinking about the work they're doing and their research and how they're working with communities. Another part of our workshop is we actually do traditional beadwork with cultural bearer Selena Alexander. And this is an amazing experience because we start this off early in the week and then we continue to work on our beadwork. And really what it gives us is an opportunity to sit around together and talk and learn from each other and experience this cultural process, and as well as learning about the community. And Elza is one of our students, and there's a quote from her about she remembered Selena talking about how much she misses how cold it used to get during the winter. And so thinking about that missing climate and things that they're missing. And then we also have, after the end of the workshops, I'm leaving out a lot of the workshop details, but we have the students come back afterwards and come up with ArcGIS story maps about different aspects of Arctic change. And so they also learn about that, but then learn different ways of communicating what they've learned about the Arctic after the workshop. And I just wanted to also recognize that this workshop is a collaboration, and we've had students from two other NRT programs, the Damamta NRT from the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and also the University of Maine Sauna NRT. And so we've been able to bring students from different NRT programs to this workshop, which has been really helpful. And this year we also had students come from other locations like LTR sites to be able to learn about working with these communities. And I just wanted to also show the slide of all the folks that have worked on these workshops so far. It really does take a large group of people to make this happen. But I would recommend, if you're thinking about this kind of workshop for students, or if you're preparing to propose an NRT, that you work with Katie and Elena on this, because it's been a really impactful workshop as part of our program. And I just wanted to put up my colleagues' emails, Liz Burkowski and Alice Contosta, because they have been really the key leaders in this program. And I will stop talking now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruth. I think our third and final little spotlight presentation is with Janet Clarke, Education Director at Sitka Sound Science Center. Jen, do you have?
Yes,
There you go.
got it. Yeah, thank you. And I'm hoping you can hear me okay. Is that right?
Sound good.
Good, thank you. I really want to thank you for inviting me to share our particular, as soon as I could get this going, it would be even better. Hold on a minute. Our particular program, which we call Scientist-in-Residency fellowship program, which we shorten to SURF. And that makes sense for us because surf is, oddly enough, here in the southeastern town of Sitka, a pretty common outdoor activity. Surfing on our coastline is part of what we do here. And so talking about how we have surfs kind of gives us a little cheerful feeling every time we talk about that. But the Scientist-in-Residency program is one that is based here at the Sitka Sound Science Center. And noticing, and our particular mission is to increase understanding of the terrestrial, the aquatic and marine environments of coastal Alaska. And in noticing both the programs that were talked about previous to this and looking at ARCUS's values and goals, et cetera, we share a lot in common. Absolutely, we too here are interested in increasing the capacity for collaborative research. We also are, part of our goals and values are to promote reciprocal exchange and professional training, and certainly culturally responsive education. And I love the fact that all of these presentations represented that, and I just feel like it's very inspiring to me. We are a field station, and I feel like as a field station, we truly meet this definition of a nexus between research and education. I think some of the facilities we have and the positionality of where we are and so on and so forth means that we have a unique way of doing that, because we are truly right in the middle of Sitka, and we are on an island where everybody who comes here intentionally, because you get here by flying in or by a ferry. And having a working hatchery and a aquarium that showcases the local marine invertebrates, as well as the kind of research labs that are present here, creates an opportunity for extraordinary and unique and really impactful place-based education that's coordinated with research, and also workforce development programs, especially with our hatchery. The Scientist-in-Residency Fellowship Program is one that was envisioned about sometime in 2010, 2012, in which we started looking around and seeing that we had strong programs in Southeast Alaska for artists in residence. And those artists would come and people could see their work being done. And they began to understand them not just as an artist and what their work was, but also as a person. And we said, this is a problem we have with scientists. People don't see them as people themselves, and they don't get to watch them do science. And so why don't we make that happen with a Scientist in Residence program? And that then happened. We went to NSF, got a grant to host this in 2012. And in this case, the Scientist in Residence program was born, and in Sitka, we happen to have, I think, a unique way of making it possible for community to learn about scientists as people. The way this happens is that whether it is a recruiting kind of call for scientists interested in this, or whether a scientist who has an interest in being here, a researcher who has an interest in being here, maybe because of trying to meet some aspects of a grant that they're writing, or maybe it's because they have a reason for placing themselves in this very location, scientists come to us, and either through interviews and other ways of doing a screening process, we invite them to be a SURF. And our experience has shown that we can host as many as 4 SURFs in a year. They're here for 1 month. And we ask SURFs to be here in the fall or in the winter or spring, not in the summer. And in those time periods, they come with intention. And the intention is built from the very beginning, because before a person even steps off the plane, they've already met with us on multiple times to talk about who they are as a researcher, what other interests they have, how they would like to share this research, what kinds of hobbies do they have, what are the things that make us be able to represent and support them as a whole person. And before they get to Sitka, they already have a full schedule that's based on these conversations. It starts with an introduction that every surf does, and that is an introduction on our public radio. In Sitka, public radio and the daily paper are culturally extremely important. This is what the community uses to get their news. And so the very first thing that a surf does is we prep them for a morning interview on the public radio station. And it's their first time to have an idea of how they're going to reach out to the community and introduce themselves. Oftentimes after such an introduction, surfs are stopped on the street and they say, "Oh, you're the jellyfish guy. I know, I heard you on the radio." So all of a sudden they have community connections right away. And in this particular manner, they come to us in a way that allows them to think about 3 different areas. One, what they might do in terms of promoting their goals they have for their own research while they're here. Secondly, how they will learn to operate within a community in an informal manner. And thirdly, how they'll do more formal education outreach with the support from the education team in the schools itself. This particular introduction has been very important because people then get to see both Dr. Lauren Bell, who is our research director, myself as the education director, and Zofia Danielson, who coordinates their entire visit before they get here. And we ask them to highlight all those things so that by the time they're here, they have a calendar that's filled with school programming, community programming, something fun that they like to do, and a couple of things that are more unique, more usual in what they do in their real work, which is to do maybe a formal presentation, which we call a natural history seminar. So once we talk with them, we talk about this as being, imagine a research retreat. What could you do with a month that you would like to accomplish? Sometimes that research retreat is, they say, I've had a chapter I've been trying to finish on this particular book or this particular PhD doctorate or whatever. I could just use some uninterrupted time to write. Other times, for instance, the surf we had in the fall, Gavin McNichol, said, I have a project I need to start on yellow cedar. I'm going to locate it here in Sitka, but I need to have time to scout out the area, to meet the tribal citizens that I need to speak with, to do all the prep work with our principles of community and reciprocal exchange. And so Gavin came as a surf in order to do that kind of work, to immerse himself in the community he intended to do future research in. At the same time, oftentimes people say to us, well, why Sitka? Why would this be the place? I'm a polar researcher. Why would I be in Sitka? And what we found is the unique position of Sitka on the lower end of subarctic and Arctic research, and on the upper end of research that's being done up and down the Pacific coast, offers this opportunity for a researcher to find people who are very interested in their work, even as far north as the ice, the Arctic ice. They come here and find a community that's interested, and they also find space for themselves to do the work that they need to do. So while we call it a research retreat, almost no surfs come here to do research. They come here to do something that is something they need to accomplish, and to very intentionally and very deliberately build their skills in interacting with community and interacting with in informal ways that will help them in their future work in any community. You're seeing an aerial view of the Sitka Sound Science Center, part of the Sheldon Jackson campus with the mill building next to it, the hatchery work around it, and the positioning of this particularly beautiful location across along the coastline. There's a herring spawn shown here. It's a place where people want to come, and we are a uniquely scientifically literate community. I often think it's because of programs like the SURF program, but it means that they are welcomed with open arms. The other thing that is true is that we make sure that from the get-go, we talk about how you will interact with the community in a way that's going to be interesting and personal. In this case, although this shows the inside of one of our spaces, and Courtney Hart, who was a SURF a couple of years ago, did an entire evening program on working with cooking with mussels and with other mollusks. And so it was a culinary experience for the community based on her own research with mollusks. This happens across the board. We look at what their interests and hobbies are. When Julie Schramm was here, she taught the entire community of knitters and crocheters how to make little sea creatures, and the knitters and crocheters became her biggest fan club. And while you wouldn't necessarily see that as being the kind of community members that would show up, that's our purpose. Kate Stafford kayaked with people and put a hydrofoam in the water. We look for ways that scientists can connect in things they're interested in doing and things that the community will be left with an enduring impact. The other thing that is super important for us, and this is the part that I was really happy that I got to share, is science and schools. In this case, unlike other experiences that SURFs might have had in doing education in schools, we create an opportunity for a SURF to have the most successful time they've ever had in any school visit. The SURF, we ahead of time, we understand their research and what they're comfortable putting forth. We know we want to come up with a way to create an opportunity to simulate the kinds of skills and strategies they use in their research in the classroom itself. So it's very authentic and very engaging. At that point, we as educators at the Sitka Sound Science Center, we know the curriculum of every grade level from K through 8 and every high school class. And we go, okay, where would this fit into the curriculum itself? Because we don't want our SURF to drop in for a day for them to sit aside their science notebooks and listen to them and then bring them back up again. We want the research that they're going to be talking about with kids to integrate completely into the curriculum so that they can expand what they're learning with authentic science. And so in this case, Brian Ulaski did a cool study at Mount Edgecombe High School with preference of urchins for different kinds of kelp. And the students worked with urchins and kelp in these containers, and they asked questions, and they found the results of their studies to give them a clear understanding of what urchins will prefer to eat if given the chance, if given the choice. And Rachel Lauer was able to bring up the actual cores in doing a deep sea ocean coring and share them with middle schoolers. And Annette Patton was able to talk with students on the cross trail of Sitka to talk about the impacts of layers of soil on landslide risk. All of these are their authentic research programs, and they do them with students. So the school experience is put together by us as the educators, completely supported by the teachers. Collaborations occur between teachers, scientists, and us. We go in with materials, with the classroom kinds of plan in place. We know how the schools work. Scientists come out feeling like 100% five-star teachers because they've had this kind of support, and they come out with a totally different way of approaching a school program. What has this done for us? Well, what we find is whether the SURF is through a program that we have, that we can pay the their month stipend, their lodging, their flights, their program materials, all the support they get through this month for that mini research sabbatical, and also the ways of intentionally working on community and school relationships. They also become part of the Science Center family, and many of the serfs have come back many times, either for school programs. Cheryl Rosa, who is pictured here, was just here last week for a second grade lesson on symbiosis. Many of the serfs that I see here in these photos have come back for both research or school or education, or in the case of, say, Colleen Duncan, serves on our science advisory board, or Pete Ramundi, who has come with his own students from University of California, Santa Cruz in a month-long field course to do work. Our serfs become a much greater network, and they put us out in a way that creates an extended reach for the Science Center. One of the funders of the SURF program, Sam Skaggs, said that SURFs are like the tide. They bring in new nutrients and leave some behind when they go. And I think that's a really accurate description of the SURF program. The fact is that currently we have SURFs that are funded by EPSCoR, who have indicated they find it so necessary to provide the professional development that's possible right here in Sitka. But we also have a series of SURFs that are self-funded. They are people who have written it into their grants, and they come here with those things in mind. And I encourage people who have an interest in that to do that. Zofia Danielson's email is right on this last slide. She is able to immediately bring in your interest to the rest of us, and or of course Lauren Bell, our research director, or myself, the education director. Please feel free to reach out, because we can really help you decide if that's a good fit for yourself or your postdoc, or anything that you have any kind of interest in doing, kind of an extended communications and outreach training, as well as that little bit of a mini sabbatical. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Janet. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Helena, for providing these great examples of different types of exchanges that can happen within and across our community. We do have a couple minutes that we can take any questions that our audience might have for our speakers today. So if you would like to raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask a question directly, if you would like to put a question in the chat, we can field a couple questions now.
And I'll just jump in and say that we've had a request in the chat if the presenters today don't mind putting a link to your program, or if you have a report, something like that, that you could just share out so people could keep track of what was discussed today. Thank you. It looks like we've got a question from Jack.
Oh, and
I've got a raised hand from Jack Dibb. Did you have a question, Jack?
Can't hear me though.
Now we got you.
Oh, it's working now? Yeah. So my
Yep.
question was for Helena. I think all three talks were great and really stimulating, but I was curious, and I appreciate the notion that dealing with a large group with, kind of open-ended membership can be really difficult. But, it's also a little perilous to start out and say, well, here's the 10 people that we want to work with for the next however many years. And did you guys make a decision that you're going to really focus on narrow science topics or research interests, or was it just personality based that was how you selected your cats that played nice together?
That's a great question, Jack. And we went round and round in this for a bit about how to do this. We based it on subject areas, and then we had to base it on availability of who was around. And then we had to go back around again and reevaluate subject areas. that's how that process worked a little bit. We started with the minimum viable consortium in 2023. We actually opened it up a little bit in 2024 and have the intention of growing. We are not trying to be exclusive. In 2024, we were joined by the Cold Climate, oh gosh, CCHRC, Cold Climate Housing and Research. Help
Center.
me. Center. Thank you. We had
Cold Climate Housing Research Center. Yes.
Center. I
Nice.
didn't know what the C was. Yes. CCHRC, and we had NREL in there as well. And your point is really well made, and is not the intention for us to continue that way, but it was the intention for us to start that way in order to make sure we had a strong foundation that could keep momentum going. I don't know if Britt has anything to add there too, because Britt was key in this.
Yeah, and the second workshop did not include exactly the same people that the first workshop did. So there were a few disciplinary and subject matter areas that kind of became more, they kind of bubbled up to the top as like really ripe for collaboration. And I think we pulled in additional people around those areas where energy and momentum was built. And I think in ARCUS's interest in supporting that activity, we saw a leadership within our community with Helena and Pips wanting to see this happen. But I think that ARCUS has always wanted to include more of our institutional members as this work moves forward. And so we also are thinking about ways to make that happen. So any additional questions for our speakers? So I'm going to put just a few links in the chat right now, because we were thinking a little bit about how these opportunities can be funded. And so one opportunity that could enable future collaboration workshops, like the Alaska Maine Bridging Arctic Gateways workshop, are EPSCoR workshops, because we have both Maine and Alaska and New Hampshire are all EPSCoR states, and those kind of proposals can be put in at any time. As Ruth mentioned, the research traineeship program has an upcoming deadline. I believe it's September 8th. So those proposals can be developed at this point in time. I believe the way the SURF activities are supported right now, the Alaska EPSCoR accepts applications for SURF fellowships in the fall. I don't know if you guys open that up to other institutions beyond UAF researchers. Could you say anything about that, Janet?
Yeah, thank you, Britt. We do work with Tara Borland with EPSCoR, and one of the things that's true is that I think that would be a question to ask of Tara as to what the umbrella is. Certainly that interface of change program right now is including researchers working within Alaska, but I don't think I know that in the past we have actually had SURFs from other places as well under EPSCoR's umbrella.
And then I think for international exchange, there are a couple of programs like the UArctic North to North program, Fulbright Arctic Initiative, that folks would be really familiar with. I do know that UArctic and ARCUS, we maintain a reciprocal membership relationship. And if your organization is part of UArctic, on the 30th of April, they're also going to be getting together with the North American caucus. There's going to be a meeting for that. And that's another opportunity to talk about how we can strengthen connections across US institutions. So would love to see folks participate in that so that we can carry forward some of this discussion if you're part of the UArctic membership. And then one other opportunity that is unique to ARCUS, we have also as a member of the University of Lapland's Arctic Center, and they are currently looking at bringing over a delegation this fall, and they're seeking interest from our community around folks who would be willing to host their organization, who would like to maybe get together ahead of time to identify priority areas for collaboration, so they can help identify which researchers to send over to make that visit the most productive it can be. So we're planning to host another call that will invite folks to come in and think about what might happen with that Lapland delegation this fall. So that's another example of some international collaboration that we have readily available. I think that we have big ambition for this call in terms of having more time to kind of connect and chat and dig into specific ideas for collaboration. But we're a little bit bigger group than will probably allow us to go into depth, but I did want to open the floor. If folks have specific asks right now or specific things that they're starting to working on and they're looking for collaboration or they're looking for exchange opportunities. Anyone has anything that they'd like to share, highlight, or talk about, we can plan some follow-up conversations around this if folks do have interests.
And I'll
about
go ahead.
funding, strategic funding, and how, and like in this political climate, how are you guys doing more partnerships regarding funding, stabilized funding? Because some of the projects, they're great collaborations, but if there's no funding, cannot do it anymore, right? So I was wondering some of the sources or.
That's a great question. And that's, one of the motivating factors for this call, I think, on our part was to see if this is a topic that people want to talk about more, if this is something that's on people's minds, how will we approach just that face-to-face collaboration and establishing research partnerships if there's not readily available federal funding to write into grants or other opportunities to establish those connections. So that, sort of gauging community interest in this enables ARCUS to say, where would we apply for or investigate opportunities for funding a larger exchange program between our institutional members that could get broadened to our community. That would be something sustainable, even if it's, short-term exchanges initially, but broadening longer term opportunities. So I think the first step is to gauge interest and see what's really necessary right now. What are people feeling is timely, and what are they envisioning missing in the near future in terms of these exchanges among research institutions and researchers, and then think about how to target that towards a existing or future opportunity for funding that would be able to sustain this type of exchange, because we as an organization can see that this is critical to collaborative research, and yet, obviously this is going to be something that could be really lacking in the near future. So if anybody has anything to say, I guess, on that side of things, what would help us as an organization target specific opportunities? What are you, how do exchanges fit in your mindset of what's needed right now to respond to these challenging times? That would be also a useful thing to chat about right now, if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Or even just sharing the state of affairs, because I see that, like Gad, if you wanted to say something a little bit more about your thoughts around Fulbright, because yes, we're spotlighting it, like, because we also have some concerns about, some of these very important, things that have been a staple for exchange over the years may not be that way anymore.
This is Paul Thompson at Dartmouth College, and I was sort of somebody mentioned to Fulbright is that there is a Canadian Fulbright Arctic chair at Dartmouth, which the chair is here this year and will be spending a sabbatical in Alaska after she leaves here at Dartmouth, which I think maybe about now she will be. But I don't, of course, that was in effect before the recent funding cuts, so I don't know the future of that. I didn't ask her when I talked to her, which was a couple months ago now, I guess.
Paul, I think we'd love to learn more about what you're doing and if we can help connect, you know.
Well, yes, I would be. I've sent private messages to a few of you. I have been at Dartmouth College since 2001, and you know, I was always actively attending meetings of the Arctic Studies Institute here. But in the past, earlier in my career, I was the district librarian for the Yukon Flat School District in Fort Yukon, Alaska for 4 years, in the late 70s, early 80s. Went back to get my PhD, hoping to return to information access research in Alaska upon graduation, but there were no openings available to do anything like that. So I went to a more traditional academic path, which I wasn't planning to do, but eventually ended up back at Dartmouth College in 2001. My specialty is informatics research, but having lived in Fort Yukon, I'm very interested in research related to Alaskan communities. And in particular, I had funding when Anna Kurtula was still the program director at NSF in 2014 and 15 to do community-based participatory research in Alaska on, I guess, what would now be called broadband issues, but that term wasn't the in term back then, so called it something else. And Anna did plan to fund me for a workshop back in Alaska in 2015, but after years of trying, that still hasn't happened. And of course, then broadband took off. And but I have many other interests besides broadband. I'm not really a technical network person.
Well, we're glad you were here today. And I hope you will join us for future community calls. We can
Right, I've been attending ARCUS meetings pretty regularly over the last 5 or 6 years.
It's great.
So, yeah, go ahead, Audrey.
I was going to say before we wrap up, can we invite anyone else who wants to share anything, whether it's related to potential exchanges or funding or just the state of the world right now? We want to make sure that we keep some reality in these. You know, we need to have some hope for the future and yet also be cognizant of the fact that everything is very challenging right now. So does anybody want to throw out there things that they're concerned about or that they've heard that the rest of the community should be aware of?
Go ahead, Jack.
I guess I take some small comfort in hearing that the Arctic Council is actually still once again functioning a little bit, and as the Arctic Council, the chairmanship is shifting to Denmark any day now. I hope Denmark can work effectively to keep Greenland part of Denmark and not part of this country, but who knows?
I think there's a meeting coming up in May, right? So I'll have to keep an eye out for what comes out of that. So there are still opportunities, at least posted online, whether or not anything's getting funded these days, I don't know. But if this community would like to come together around different proposal opportunities, we'd love to hear about folks that have particular interest in, for example, maybe an NRT. Again, that opportunity to connect with the University of Lapland folks and maybe identify some shared interests areas so that we can enable a better exchange when they visit. If you guys are interested in being involved in that planning discussion, you could drop your line here in the chat. You can send Audrey or I an email and we'll loop you into that discussion. Or if you have stuff that you're trying to spin up and you're looking for partners, again, we're here to help connect folks. So just really want to open the lines of communication and encourage you to think about working across the consortium of institutions that are available to you here. So Jack, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think that we ought to look in the near term, and I know Ruth had some, somewhat good news that there's European initiatives to try to save research, global research and Arctic research, and opening some calls to US researchers that maybe weren't ever open before. There's a rumor that France is going to do the same, or maybe already has. So I think we need to look, I guess I find it very, very challenging to be optimistic that NOAA and NSF and NASA are going to be very useful to us for the next at least year and a half, right? Maybe 4 years, but at least until the next the midterm elections. There's no hope, I think, that the budgets of those agencies are going to recover very much. It's pretty scary, right? What you see in the news all the time, but there are allies around the world that maybe can help us, right? So I would say look for those opportunities. And maybe Ruth knows more about the Swedish stuff. I mean, she mentioned it to me the other day. So
Yeah, Sweden, their VR has put out a call for research for universities in Sweden to attract U.S. researchers there. So they have funding for up to $200,000 to relocate a scientist or a researcher to their institutions. Not that I want everyone to leave, but it at least could be a temporary. I think right now it doesn't look like it has to be permanent, but I think there's an option for it to be if the institution wants them to be. But it could at least keep your research, the kinds of research you're doing that's not going to be allowed, basically. It seems like here in the US might be, you might be able to keep it going. So.
And I just put a link in the chat. Also, we're trying to keep as much as a small staff can do in these times. We're trying to keep up-to-date information on opportunities, especially those types of international collaborations and things that may not be on people's radar screens in our connectthearctic.com platform, which is a place for Arctic events and information. And then we have an Arctic roundtable that's mostly geared towards discussion. If people have their own topics you want to bring up or invite collaborators to, or that sort of thing, please feel free to jump over there and become a member and help us keep that discussion going. So just throw that out there as a option as well.
I think that might be all we have time for today. But really happy to have you guys all here. Hope to see you on the Connect the Arctic. If you do have other ideas or opportunities that you think that everyone should know more about or that you'd like to engage around, I'll follow up with those of you who've contacted me on the chat about the opportunity with the University of Lapland. And again, we hope to see you again at future calls. And if we can spin some additional projects, collaborations up, or if you heard anything today, you need more information about becoming a SURF, I hope you guys have at least seen some friendly faces that you can reach out to directly about the work that they're doing. So thank you all very much for joining us today.
Thank you all. Thanks to our presenters. Nice to see everyone. Keep the faith.